I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is day 7 of Mastering Diabetes Week, and back with us is the co-founder, Cyrus Khambatta, along with his lovely wife, Kylie, who's a registered nurse who also is a coach in the program. And we're here to answer any of your questions about diabetes in general or the Mastering Diabetes program in particular. But one thing we're going to do a little bit differently today is bring on a couple of the people that actually have gone through the program to give testimonials, because a bunch of you said, well, of course the coaches are going to say their program's great because they're coaches. Well, you're going to hear from people that actually reversed their diabetes through doing this wonderful program. So please, let's welcome to the show, Cyrus and Kylie.
What's
Hi.
happening? It's good to see you, Chef AJ. Thank you so much again for this whole week. We've had such an awesome time hanging out with you and being able to teach people exactly what we do and why it's so powerful.
It's been amazing because, I obviously know you and your wife and I know Robbie, but I did not know all these wonderful coaches that I've been meeting, and they love their jobs so much. And some of them are diabetic and some aren't, but they equally love their jobs and working with people because they're seeing actual results.
For sure. We actually have a policy here at Mastering Diabetes that if you don't have diabetes, we're going to give you diabetes first, and then you can reverse it, and then you'll have a really cool story.
Yeah. That actually is an interesting thought, and I'm not being funny, but when you think about that movie, Super Size Me, the damage he did to himself in 30 days of eating McDonald's, you could almost do some kind of a documentary like that where you take a healthy person, make them insulin resistant, and put them through Mastering Diabetes. That might not be a bad idea.
100%.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name? Leonard Spiewak or something like that? I remember when I was watching that movie, I was like, wow, it's amazing how quickly he was able to destroy his liver, not destroy, significantly impair his liver, right? And, you're right in the sense that this idea that you can go from being a quote unquote healthy, non-disease individual to developing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, to developing insulin resistance and then prediabetes and then type 2 diabetes can be quick. Usually it takes years, but it can certainly be a quick progression. And then when you get to that point, the reversal mechanism, which is what we're going to focus on today, the reversal mechanism is faster than I had ever given it credit for, honestly. I mean, I've gone to school for a ridiculous amount of time and read the research, and I'm trying to be conservative and be like, okay, well, I guess you can reverse diabetes, but it's going to take 9 months, a year, 2 years, right? Not even close. I mean, we have people who are literally reversing insulin resistance and becoming non-diabetic from their blood work within months of applying this approach. And you guys will get to see from a couple of them today. You let them tell their own stories in their own authentic way.
Well, that's why it's so good to have a coach, especially if somebody is on medication, because changes can happen so quickly and they may not need as much medication or maybe medication at all. And so it's good to have somebody that actually is living with diabetes or that is a healthcare professional that can help them through that transition.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that personal experience matters for sure.
Yeah. And actually, one of the great things about our team is that we have a really nice variety of people who have been in healthcare in different ways. So I have healthcare experience as a nurse. We know how to put people in touch with their doctors. We also have registered dietitians on our team. We've got people who've been coaching people for years and years and years. So our coaching team is really well experienced and also understands what it's like in the healthcare system and when to escalate something to a medical professional, like you said, to come off of medication, to adjust medication. So, we really try to practice really, safety first is our motto. And if your blood glucose is dropping really quickly, oftentimes the medications are the first things that need to be adjusted. And so we help people navigate that with their physician, or if they don't have a physician that can help them, we help them find one. And often we love referring plant-based physicians, obviously.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
That is so cool because they need one a lot of times, because if they have a regular doctor that doesn't understand this, they'll be putting them on that keto diet before you can say Mastering Diabetes.
Yeah. So I'm actually, let's talk here a little bit about the higher level principle here of reversing a chronic disease, right? Because the number of people in the United States and in the world that have developed some form of chronic disease, whether we're talking about prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, whether it's some form of heart disease, whether hypertension, high cholesterol, coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, whether it's Alzheimer's disease, which is a degenerative chronic condition, whether it's fatty liver disease, chronic kidney disease, you name it. These conditions are now affecting a larger proportion of the population than ever before, right? And most of these conditions are actually on a sort of hockey stick curve, moving at tremendous rates. So the traditional, doctors who have been trained in the Western medicine approach aren't told, aren't educated, aren't taught in medical school to use the word reversal. They're not told to use the word reversal. They're not told and educated that reversal is even possible. And this is a huge problem. Now, I don't want anybody to misconstrue my words or our words here at Mastering Diabetes. We love doctors. We absolutely love doctors. They serve a ridiculously large need in the medical community. There's no question about it. But what I'm saying is that when they go to medical school, the medical curriculum is insufficient. And the medical curriculum doesn't actually tell them how to reverse disease. It teaches them how to treat disease, oftentimes using pharmaceutical medication. And just like Kylie was saying, there's a time and place for medication. There's no question about it. But there's also a time and place to use your food as medicine. And when you use your food as medicine, it's a much more powerful reversal mechanism that actually enables you to decrease or deprescribe your use of pharmaceutical medication and get to a place where you don't have a chronic disease anymore. And so what you're going to hear from today are two people. Now, the first one is Tammy. The second one is Anna. And these are two individuals that have gone through the Mastering Diabetes coaching program. They're very verbal about how this, method has changed their life. Mm-hmm. And, they'll be able to explain to you the problems they were experiencing, their hesitation to do this program in the first place, what they did, what worked, what didn't work, and where they are now. And it's really one of the things that we just love, absolutely love, is hearing stories from real people, mm-hmm. right? It never, ever, ever gets old to see somebody write down their story, to say, hey guys, I wanted to give you a little insight here. My A1C used to be 10.2, and now my A1C is a 5.2, right? I went from being, extremely diabetic to, I was a place where I'm like now non-diabetic as far as my A1C is concerned. And then a whole bunch of other biometrics start to fall into place. Their cholesterol comes down, their triglycerides come down, their blood pressure comes down, their energy levels go up, their digestion improves, the amount of fat stored in their liver comes down, they're sleeping better, they have less anxiety, you name it, right? So a lot of these things unfold at the same time, and it's just cool to watch.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you say, and it's not really the doctor's fault if they don't know this. And that's why I hope like everybody that has a doctor will give them your book so that they can learn this if they want to learn this. I was watching a lecture with Dr. Goldhammer yesterday. I was watching online the NHA conference, and he was talking about how if you're a regular person and you get diabetes or heart disease and you go to a regular doctor, you can guarantee that you are going to be on medication the rest of your life and never get well. Whereas your approach is the exact opposite. Oh, you're muted. Yeah, that's why I can't hear you.
I know. Welcome to our digital nomading life here.
Apologies if it's loud in the background. Go ahead.
So one of the things that, as a nurse, having been in the healthcare system for so many years, one of the things that inspired me about a plant-based diet was the idea of wellness and really the focus on bringing wellness to the table. And that's one of the things that we help our clients with all the time, is really seeing their potential. And one of the other experiences that I've had in the healthcare system is that oftentimes we underestimate people's willingness and ability to make changes. And so oftentimes doctors in the office won't actually make those suggestions, even though they might know they work or believe they work.
Right.
Because they think, oh, you're not going to be able to or willing to make changes in your lifestyle. And the reality is that when people get the right information at the right time and the right support, the willingness to change goes very high. The motivation to change goes, very high. And when you start seeing results so quickly in just those blood glucose readings, and you sort of shift the focus into feeling well and feeling better, the results start to come way faster, and the changes don't become as hard. They become really exciting. It doesn't feel as hard to make change because you're feeling so much better. And that's something that I probably underestimated before I started working as a coach with Mastering Diabetes. And I'm so grateful for that gift to see that people have such high capacity for change when they have the right conditions around them. And it's amazing. So.
What I was going to say is your first success story is here. So I'm going to enter her, or not going to enter her. I'm going to have her enter. That sounded terrible. But I want to just, it's Sunday. Look,
Awkward weekend vibes. We're all feeling
that's
them.
funny. That's funny.
Gosh, I could say something here, but I won't. My stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Right, is
Keep
like,
it classy. Keep it classy.
keep it
AJ.
plain. But what I was saying, what was so nice about meeting all the people on your team is, like I said, some were diabetic, some were, but they all were eating the same way. They weren't telling the people in the group, this is what you have to do. They were doing it themselves, whether they had diabetes or not.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and we also just like to lead out of, you know, a place of inspiration. We like to say all the time, like, we're not the food police. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. Neither is Kylie, neither is Wendy, neither is Michelle, neither is anybody, Adam, you name it. We are here to guide you and lead you and inspire you towards a place of better health, period, end of story. It is your decision if you want to listen to this information or not, right? And so the people that you're going to hear from, I guess we can let Tammy in.
She can let her in right now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, she'll tell you. She argued with me for months before she did anything. And then finally, when she did, she was like, oh my God, my life has totally changed for the better, right? So
she,
it's
you know,
always
and
good
the
to
thing is, you know, it's not like it's a paid testimonial. I've seen her just on other places or Facebook groups, and that's all she talks about. Tammy, are you here?
I am. Can you see me?
I can
no.
hear you, but I can't see you. So let me see if I
Oh.
can ask you to start video, if that would help. I just clicked a little button.
We want to see your beautiful face, Tammy.
Let's see. There we go. Up. It looks like, okay. Are we on?
Keep talking.
Still can't see you.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm on my phone. I'm sorry.
No worries. Can you come onto your computer? Is that a possibility or not?
So let me try.
Okay. So in the meantime, we'll just keep talking and
Yeah,
then
keep talking.
yeah. So actually, Chef AJ, would you mind if I shared my screen so I can show
Not
a
at
couple
all.
of
Let me
testimonials?
just click a little button to let you do that. There we go.
All right.
We have some fun testimonials to share.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So this is a perfect example. So this is Denise. Let's read this together here. She says, 4 months ago, I found out that my A1C was 12.3. And just for reference purposes, an A1C is a marker of your average blood glucose value over a 3-month period. So the goal is to have your A1C be less than 5.7%. And that's, you know, we can go into the details of why that is, but the idea here is that the lower this number, the better. And if you're between a 5.7 and a 6.4, that puts you in the prediabetes range. And if you're greater than 6.5, that means you have type 2 diabetes. Now, Denise came to us with a 12.3, which is a very high blood glucose level. And this indicates that she had been living with a high blood glucose for a long time. We're talking months, maybe even years to get to this point. Okay, so she says my A1C was 12.3 and my blood glucose was 525. Again, for reference purposes, your blood glucose is supposed to be somewhere between about 80 and 130 on a daily basis. She's at 525, which means that her blood glucose is 5 times higher than it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Okay, so these two numbers indicate that she was extremely diabetic, not just a little bit, not just baby diabetic, but like very diabetic, right? So this really scared me. When the lab technician called me, I immediately started eating vegan. I had my blood work done today and my A1C is now 6.5%. So this is the cutoff. This is like her A1C got cut in half. And she's now on the border of type 2 and not type 2. So she's like likely going to come down underneath the type 2 category. And my blood glucose was 140. So she cut her blood glucose by 400 points approximately.
Mhm.
And she's lost 60 pounds. This literally saved my life. Okay, so that's one example. We also have other examples of, you know, individuals saying, just got my A1C after exactly 3 months. It went from 5.8 to 5.3. So again, pre-diabetes to non-diabetic, officially no longer in the pre-diabetic range. All right. So it's just literally story after story after story of individuals saying, I'm pre-diabetic and I've been having the hardest time staying on track. I finally decided to purchase the Master Diabetes Meal Planner and to help with recipes. Oh my Lord, holy moly. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks, 8 pounds in 2 weeks. That's 4 pounds a week. My blood pressure was 147/89, which is elevated. And now it's 133/81. So this is almost fully normal. And this happened in only 2 weeks. So like I was saying earlier, the results come quickly and it's really cool to watch. other people living with type 1, just like myself.
Mhm.
Went to my endocrinologist today for my regular appointment where he usually tells me not to eat many carbs, blah, blah, blah. But not today. My A1C was 6.2, which is exceptional for a person with type 1 diabetes. And he said, whatever you are doing, continue it. Period. End of story. We get this a lot from people's doctors,
Mhm.
right? So you see that this story of lower A1C, improved health, lower triglycerides, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol is a conserved story. It happens over and over and over. Okay. People are writing to us from other countries. It's just a cool thing to watch. In October, my fasting glucose was 8.8 millimolar. This is in,
Non-US.
right.
Anything other than the US reading.
Right. Metric system right
Yeah.
here. So this is a high blood glucose.
Mhm.
And now it's 6.2. So it came down significantly. My A1C is 5.8%, which is on the border of prediabetes. And my fasting glucose is now 6.5, which is considered normal. And I lost 26 pounds.
And reduce
That's
metformin.
amazing.
And I reduced metformin by 50%.
So yeah.
So,
And we get this is the kind of feedback that we see from people day after day after day. It's so exciting. And, as our team is growing and we're working with more and more people from the healthcare world, it's exciting when you get to see these results and experience them with our clients, with the people who are in our program. It's exceptional.
yeah, it's a story that just never gets old.
Yeah.
It really never gets old.
Somebody entered the waiting room. I don't know if it's Tammy or Anna, but we'll know in just a second.
Let's see who it
Okay,
is.
let's see. Drum roll, please.
I know.
Let's see. iPhone is connecting to audio. I wonder if it's something. There it
There
is.
she is.
Tammy, how you
Oh,
doing?
Sorry about that. It was in my settings. I needed to turn my camera on.
No worries. I love your glasses, by the way. You look wonderful.
Thanks. I can't see without them. So
Okay, so Tammy, basically, here's what we're talking about today. We're talking about reversing, the concept of reversing and not just managing or treating, type 2 diabetes. So we've sort of prefaced this with the idea that doctors aren't really told how to reverse chronic diseases, diabetes being one of them. But yet there are, thousands of people like yourself who have gone through the Mastering Diabetes method and seen tremendous results. So why don't you explain to the listeners here where you were when you decided to join the program, why you were arguing with me for the first month or two, and then what happened when you fully embraced this philosophy?
So sure. So in March of 2017, I had gone to the doctor and had some lab work done. And I had met with her in November of 2016. And she had asked if she could do genetic typing on me also, because I was so resistant. She told me I was going to be really sick and I was so resistant to any kind of medication. So I had blood work done, met with her in the beginning of March of 2017, and I was horrible. I had diabetes, I had fatty liver, I had high cholesterol, I had high hematocrit, high red blood count, high LDL, low HDL. I mean, it was lit up in all red, and it was embarrassing, and it just shook my world. And my genetics also showed that I was in the highest risk category for having all of that, as well as I carried genes for Alzheimer's and dementia and blood clotting. So it was really, it was very hard for me to wrap my head around. But the one word I kept hearing was insulin resistance, and then stabilizing your blood glucose. So I went home and started doing some research. And in my course of the 2 months between my diagnosis and when I found Mastering Diabetes, that's my research led me to a free page that you guys had out. And through there, I saw on one of the feeds in the comment section that you guys did coaching. So I contacted the number and talked to Robbie, and the rest is history. But it wasn't so easy, because even though I had gone vegetarian and given up meat the year before, I still was consuming oil and refined carbs and processed foods and dairy. And that became I was very resistant. I looked at salads and thought, if I can't have my ranch dressing on it, I can't eat salads, and I can't eat baked potatoes because I'm used to eating it with bacon and sauteed onions and butter and sour cream and extra sour cream. And so how am I going to be able to do this? And so I was very resistant initially. So anyway,
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so you were resistant. You were sort of like struggling with this process. What happened next?
So I got into the program, and I was kicking and screaming for probably the first 30 days, looking at what you guys were eating and thinking I could never eat that way, whatever. I wanted to eat out in restaurants and meet with friends, and just thought that this was a too consuming thing. And I don't know when it happened, but all of a sudden, about a month or maybe 5 weeks into it, I turned a corner, and we were out at the beach on our boat, and we had gone out to lunch, and it was at an Italian restaurant. And I had ordered 2 salads to have them combined as one, knowing that I was going to need a lot of food being salad, and I wasn't having dressing on it. And then one was just cucumbers and tomatoes, and the other was just basically lettuce and fennel. So anyway, the chef had put on Italian seasoning just to give me some flavor. And after that, it was like, that just kind of turned a corner for me. And I started having a little bit more faith. I watched my numbers start to drop. I started eating the way I was supposed to be eating. I started consuming more carbs where I was told not to. I started eating fruit for my breakfast every day. Eating beans and rice and potatoes for my lunches, and trying to eat more greens and stuff in my dinner time. And it was kind of amazing. I would go see my doctor, and my numbers were just plummeting. I mean, they were coming down at a pretty good pace, and she couldn't believe it. And she just kept saying, do what you're doing, whatever you're doing, do what you're doing. And 4.5 months later, I had reversed my diabetes, and the other stuff came slowly thereafter, but it came down into normal range. I was able to come off of my metformin. I was able to come off of my blood pressure medication. And here we are 4 years later, and I still am in normal range on my A1C, and I still am not on any kind of medication.
What's amazing, first of all, I laugh because I just love hearing your story. I've heard it 100 times, and you could tell it to me over and over, and it's great. What I love, there's 2 things that jumped out at me. Number one, I love it. I absolutely love it when doctors say, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, right? What that means is basically like, I don't know what you are doing. I don't know. I don't have the time. I don't know if I really care. All that matters is that you're doing something that's cool and it's working. So please just don't deviate from this course. Number one, that's an awesome statement. Number 2, you've been doing this for 4 years.
Yes.
You've been doing this for 4 years, which is, 4 years plus, which is a big deal. It's just a really big deal, because longevity when it comes to lifestyle change and developing a sustainable lifestyle, collection of habits is really the name of the game. You can do a lot of things to lower your A1C within a 6-week period or a 10-week period. You can starve yourself. You can exercise a lot. You can intermittent fast for 20 hours a day. You can over-inject insulin. You can take more medication, and the list goes on. But you can't do that for a very long period of time before it becomes unsustainable. But what you did is you developed a lifestyle that actually pays dividends over the course of time. And this is a new you, and this is something that's sustainable. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a lifer. You're going to be doing this for as far as.
Absolutely. And what the beauty of it is that my family didn't have to change. They didn't have health problems. They didn't have to get on board with me. And yet they all are. I have a 20-year-old and a 28-year-old, and they just announced a few months ago that they would like to move more into a whole food plant-based versus a vegan lifestyle. And that to me is the best thing that I could have heard, because I know that, they're going to live a much healthier lifestyle than I did, and a longer life than I did, so I'm so proud.
You're having quite the effect on people. You really are.
Well, you guys started it, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I can't even say enough that Mastering Diabetes, it's not just a diabetes program, it's a lifestyle program. And it will change your life. I mean, I got my life back. I sat on the couch, I took 2 to 4 hour naps every day. I was very unhealthy and didn't realize it. My blood work, I went back and looked at my blood work, because one thing I thought of is my doctor kept saying 20 to 30 years it takes for diabetes to develop. And I thought, well, how come I've never been told I was pre-diabetic then? So I went back to look at my blood work, and my doctors were never, it was there for 3 to 5 years before I was diagnosed. But nobody was talking to me about it. They only cared about my blood pressure at the time. So there was no indication that I was pre-diabetic. So it took me totally by surprise, but I was experiencing a lot of things. I was sick all the time. My allergies, I would go down in bed when I had an allergy flare, for 2 to 3 weeks. I would get sick all the time with the flus. I had plantar fasciitis. I had a chronic cough. My kids are actors, and they would write screenplays, and I would have to leave in the middle of them because I couldn't stop coughing. I couldn't get control of my cough. So these little things went away. But the one thing that really surprised me the most is I was playing sports when I was a teenager, and I had a knee injury. And I went in and had surgery. They removed half my cartilage. Then a couple of years later in college, I tried to go back out and play sports again. And I blew my knee out again, and they took the rest of my cartilage and realized I had a complete tear of my ACL. So my entire life, I've been bone on bone in my knee and have a complete tear of my ACL. I never had it repaired. And I lived in chronic pain. My knee was inflamed so much that if I went to the grocery store and walked around the grocery store, I would be swollen, and it would take hours or days for me to get that inflammation down to be able to walk with a straighter leg. And that went away. I don't have to live on the ibuprofen. I was living on it around the clock for years, and I don't have that anymore. I don't have that chronic pain. I still have the problem where my knee is still bone on bone. I do have a little bit of ache, but we went to Disneyland when it just reopened in California. And my husband, we walked 21,000 steps over the course of our Disneyland. And we had to walk back to the car. And as soon as we hit the car, my husband was passed out, and I got to drive all the way home. And I still had energy to boot, and my knee was not swollen. That would have taken me 4 days of recovery time in the old days. And I had 0 recovery time. So that's one of the benefits of eating this way too. So it's not just for diabetes, it's for everything. It's for your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear you say this, because, we experience the same types of things. It's like the most powerful inflammation buster ever devised. I mean, it's like inflammation doesn't stand a chance, whether it's coming from like a viral infection, whether it's a musculoskeletal injury, whether it's a liver issue, a gallbladder issue, whether it's a, poor cognition. It's like these inflammatory processes just get obliterated within a very short period of time. And that's just a true testament to the power of a whole food plant-based diet. It goes way beyond veganism. I think people use the word vegan a lot, but like,
right.
I don't know, vegan's not the right word, right?
Right.
We're talking about a diet that is predominantly plant-based, that comes from whole food. We're not talking about packaged and processed things that you get at the grocery store. We're not talking about enchiladas that are frozen. We're not talking about the Impossible Burger. We're talking about real whole food that you get from the produce section. When you eat it that way, your results happen, and they happen real quick.
And the amazing thing is that you can make food that looks just like what they're out there eating that's vegan, but you make it with whole foods. I get so excited cooking this way when I can create something that looks like carnitas and it's made out of oyster mushrooms. I mean, it's amazing what you can do with this way of eating, and without all the fat and without all the saturated fat, which is the biggest one.
Agreed. I love it. Chef.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, Tam. Let me turn my light on. Tammy, people are saying even I can't speak today. I'm sorry. I had my accent. Plantar fasciitis went away. That is just amazing. I'm so glad you found them, and congratulations on your success. And we have another one of, I don't know, do you call them graduates, or do you have a word for them? Members, graduates, family? What do we call these?
Clients, members. We call them family members is what we call them.
And Anna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good
Oh,
afternoon.
You gotta start your video though, because we want to see you as well as hear you.
I'm so sorry. I did not know that.
There we go.
There you
Now
go.
we see here. How you doing, Anna? So good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Fantastic. So Anna, just to give you a little background here, we're talking about the idea of reversing insulin resistance and reversing diabetes because it can be a foreign concept to the general population and even to medical professionals. So Tammy just did a fantastic job of sharing her story, reversing type 2 diabetes and getting to, non-diabetic, a non-diabetic way of life and having, her weight come down and, markers of her heart health improve dramatically. So what we'd love for you to do is tell your story about what was the problem, how did you know that there was an issue of living with diabetes, and what did you do, when you joined the Mastering Diabetes Method, and then what results came as a result?
So I was diagnosed after dealing with breast cancer and all the chemo associated with it, radiation and all that. And I'm not a doctor, but I know it affected my body in ways that I never really knew. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes shortly after I was finished with all the treatments and stuff. And the doctor wanted to immediately put me in metformin. And I took it at the beginning, but the side effects were too bad and I could not deal with them. And I knew that there had to be something else that I could do. So I became a vegetarian for some time, and that got a little better, but not really. And just stumbling around somehow, I don't remember how, but I ran into Mastering Diabetes on the internet. I think I was just trying to see what was out there, and I just stumbled into it, and it's the best thing that ever happened. So I've been following the program. I just finished one-to-one coaching with Kylie. Hi, Kylie. And, it's just so much better. I am confident. I also have the meal plan, which has been instrumental in helping me manage my blood glucose. The readings are great, and I love the food. So it's just been an excellent experience. My A1C, when I was diagnosed, I can't remember the exact number, but it was over 12. And now I'm down to 6.
Whoa. Hold on a second. We got to go backwards. Your A1C was over 12.
Yeah.
Which, like, before you had shown up for this, we shared a testimonial on the screen where the person's A1C was in the 12s. And I was explaining that is not just kind of diabetic or slightly diabetic. That is extremely diabetic. No judgment in any way, shape, or form. But you went from extremely diabetic. Now your A1C is a 6. Is that right?
6.
Okay. So that basically is in the pre-diabetes range, which is a big deal. I mean, cutting your A1C by 50% is huge. If you can literally get a 1% reduction, that is considered a dramatic reduction as far as the scientific literature is concerned. You read these papers all the time where it's like, oh, this new program was very effective, and the average A1C change was 1.0%, 1.1%. And I'm like, what? That's not a very big change. But for you, it was a 6.0% change. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was. The other thing I got from Mastering Diabetes is I hooked up with Dr. Lori Marbas. And because the other problem was my cholesterol was inching higher, but my triglycerides were over 1,200. I was able on my own and with the help of Mastering Diabetes to bring it down to about in the 500s, like 580. But Dr. Lori, after much discussion, she put me on the lowest of the statin meds to help out. And the other issue I had was my coronary calcium score was in the 250s, and the cardiologist put me on fenofibrate, which I fought those two like crazy, but there's only so much I can do after my body, what all, it's been through. Now my triglycerides are 95. My cholesterol is like, I think, I can't remember, 125, 130, something like that. So sometimes your body needs there was only so much I could do with what I was doing, but that helped a lot. Dr. Lori has been really supportive and really helpful.
That's amazing. We love Dr. Lori Marbus and their entire team over at PlantBased Telehealth.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening to this and you're interested in getting a plant-based physician, you can find them online, plantbasedtelehealth.com.
Yep.
Wonderful, exceptional human beings who really, like we were talking about earlier, they are physicians who are trained in de-prescription, unprescription, the reverse of prescription.
Yep.
And you got the benefit of their knowledge plus the master diabetes method at the same time. So this is tremendous. Do you think that this is a type of a lifestyle that you could continue, for the next year, 2 years, 5 years of your life?
The rest of my life. I'm not going to go back to eating the sad way again, ever. I don't have the taste for that anymore. Even sodas, I gave up, and I haven't had a soda in, I don't know, months, 6 months at least. So I don't miss him. I don't want him. I don't need him.
That's
awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you've been so consistent, and, over the time that you've been in the coaching program, it takes time to make certain changes. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, go ahead.
And, so, you've been really showing a lot of consistency over the course of many months with the help of the coaching team. And that's something, that kind of dedication and that commitment is where you've really seen the results in your biomarkers, in those markers.
Exactly. And I know if I cheat, I know I'm going to see the results next day. I just know it. So, I just, but the meal plan has really taken all the guesswork out of it. I mean, I got the chronometer and I got the logbook. And, that tells me exactly what I need to do.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that, because we're trying to sort of like demystify this process and just give you the tools to succeed without you having to think too hard and sort of make it convenient, right? So I'm glad to hear that all those tools are helping out.
Can I just say something? You don't have to have diabetes or be in the program to read the New York Times best-selling book or subscribe to the meal plan. I don't have diabetes. Their meal plan is fantastic. I print out the ones that I'm going to make. Like, for example, this one, broccoli and mushroom fried rice. I'm going to try pressure cooker pulled jackfruit. I'm going to try date walnut millet porridge. So you don't have to have diabetes or even be in the group to get the meal plan, right, Cyrus?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm glad you just showed that here, because we have a whole suite of tools and services to help people out depending on what is the right fit for your lifestyle and your desires. So we have a coaching program that is the most effective way to change your lifestyle. And then we have digital products. We have a do-it-yourself program. We also have this meal plan, which sends you 21 new recipes every single week for a year, so that you have literally 1,000 recipes in your inbox, and there's no more excuses about, I don't know what to make and I'm tired of eating salads, right? We're trying to get rid of that. And there've been a lot of people who have been, asking us about, how do I find a coach? How do I get a coach? How do I get a coach? Because I think being diagnosed with diabetes can be scary. It can be overwhelming, and it can kind of like, it can rock your world. It did that to me. And I know it does that to so many people. I know Tammy has explained, that when you hear the words, you have diabetes, you have type 2 diabetes, you have prediabetes, you have type 1 diabetes, it like your whole world comes down on you. Your whole world, even if it's not diabetes, even if it's, high cholesterol, hypertension, like these are conditions which can be very intimidating, right? So what we have experienced over the course of the last 4 years is that people who join our coaching program, what we do is we give you a coach which is designed to be your best friend. It's designed to be somebody who has expert knowledge in reversing insulin resistance, lowering your A1C, and getting to your ideal body weight. And when you have the power of a coach in your back pocket, and you can pick up the phone and you can text message them at any point in the day, any day of the week, when you can get on a Zoom video conference with them and you can talk with them about your fears and your desires and your struggles and your successes, there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. We've seen people who truly commit to the method, just like Tammy, just like Anna, just like literally thousands of people that have done before. The people who really give this a fair shot and commit to this process, I almost sound like I'm making this up, but it is a near 100% success rate. Okay. And it's truly an amazing thing to watch. So there's people who are saying, okay, well, how do I join the coaching program? Here's what you do. Go to masteringdiabetes.org/apply. So that's masteringdiabetes.org/APPLY. If you go there, read about it, see if this resonates with you. If you're interested, great. If you have somebody who's interested, a family member, a friend, you name it, have them go there, sign up. And our goal is to make it so that you can erase diabetes from your medical record. If you're living with prediabetes or type 2, or if you're living with type 1, you can get to a point where you can control your glucose without even thinking about it. And it's just so simple and so straightforward that, the quality of your life goes up tenfold.
There's a question, Cyrus Kylie, do you have a program to watch the virtual meeting? I'm not sure what that means.
Do we have a program
Like
to watch the
software
virtual?
program?
I'm not sure. Could you please clarify what you mean? And Matt wants to know, Cyrus, if you're doing CrossFit in Costa Rica.
Matt, okay, here's the answer. The answer is yes. So when we were in Costa Rica, we were there for 3 years, from 2017 to 2020. That's when I started CrossFit. And I started it, October or so of the year. And within a very short period of time, I recognized that it was a complete addiction and it was the greatest sport that I had ever played in my life. So I've been doing CrossFit now for 3.5 years. We moved from Costa Rica to the East Coast. We currently live just outside of Philadelphia, and I continue to do CrossFit 6 days a week, and I love it. So if you're a CrossFitter, I want to do CrossFit with you. There's no question.
Yeah, well, whenever we're traveling places, we always look for a CrossFit gym first to make sure we have one in the area.
Absolutely.
Wow. Hey, Cyrus, did Kylie tell you when she came on, because she was talking about she's going to have a baby pretty soon, that I suggested the name Hakuna?
Hakuna Khambatta. She did tell me that. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely
it. I really think it's going to be a great name. Hey, there's a question for Tammy from Lori. What is the highest staircase you've ascended since reversing your type 2 diabetes?
So I never would walk up anything, but I did walk up a pyramid in Mexico, which I stood there and I looked up at it and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it where normally I would not have even attempted it. And I walked all the way up and I got to the top and I sat there and cried for about 20 minutes. So it's, sorry, it's just, it's such a moment when you realize that you got your life back, or that it, you can do these things that you once said no to, you wouldn't even have considered. But then after I got my cry out, I sat there looking down and I thought, oh, there's no way I'm getting down from here. And two of the guys I was with hiked all the way back up to try and help me down. But I said, no, I'm going to figure this out and do it on my own. So, but I don't know how tall that was. It was the pier. It was in Mexico, and it was Cortez, or I don't know. It was one of their ruins that we were able to still climb on. So, but yeah, it was quite a moment for me. Thank you for asking.
And they say you have a Facebook group. Can anybody join your Facebook group?
Yes, I have an open Facebook group called For the Health of It, Tammy. And that's where I post a lot of recipes that are compliant recipes. Some, it's more geared towards transitioning people out of a SAD diet into a plant-based diet, but it is oil-free, and all the recipes that I post. And I also post a lot of my own stuff that I do.
Nice. Thank you. So Anna, I have a question for you. What was the absolute best part about joining the Mastering Diabetes program?
There are so many things. It's hard to pinpoint one, but I've always been a big animal advocate, and this diet and what it does for me and my body totally resonates with me. So I cannot even smell cooking meat anymore. So it's been really, I don't know, it just resonates with me on so many levels, but that's another one, it does.
That's fantastic. Sorry, guys, I keep turning my light off because it's like 100 million degrees here in Palm Springs. But Tammy, for you, what was the best part about joining the Mastering Diabetes program?
Well, getting my life back. I mean, it changed so much of my daily life. Like I said, I used to take naps all the time, and I don't have to do that. I have so much energy. I don't know what to do with it. I go out and I bike ride, I hike, I do all these things that I couldn't do before because I had the plantar fasciitis that was extremely painful to try and walk with. It was in both my feet at the time. I was always sick, whatever. So getting my life back, I went out for diabetes to reverse my diabetes, because the more you read about diabetes, the more scary it becomes, because everything's associated to insulin resistance. I believe insulin resistance is the key. It is the problem for cardiovascular disease, for strokes, for diabetes, for so many metabolic diseases that, you just don't realize when you go out. And so I thought I was just going to reverse my diabetes. And instead, everything kind of went away and improved. And I'm living a lifestyle that I hadn't lived since I was 30, in my early 30s. So that's remarkable. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Okay. Thank you. So Cyrus, I realize that not everybody watches every single day. So I want people to know, if this is the first thing maybe you're seeing regarding Mastering Diabetes Week, this is actually the culmination of a whole week. This is day 7. So I'd encourage you to go back and maybe watch some of the other videos, particularly day 1 with Cyrus, where we talked about carbs, because look at the question that we have today. And I'm sure you get this a lot from Tess. They say potatoes are bad for diabetics. So how can we do this diet and eat potatoes at the same time?
Okay. All right. So before we get to the potato question, I just want to say one thing, because there was a question here about the virtual program and the virtual retreat.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kylie.
So yes, in the past, we've been hosting retreats, live retreats, and they're so much fun. And we've hosted them in Costa Rica. And our plan was to continue hosting them in Costa Rica until, of course, travel became a little bit more complicated. So over the past year, we actually started hosting virtual retreats and virtual immersion programs that basically mimic that retreat experience from your own home. And the wonderful part about it is that you get to use the tools with us virtually, and then also practice with like preparing your food in your kitchen. And it's actually turned out to be a really wonderful experience. You actually can purchase the digital version of our virtual retreat. It's actually called, if you visit masteringdiabetes.org/fundamentals.
Correct.
And that's our virtual retreat kind of package. And you can actually do it anytime. You don't need to be anywhere at a specific time. It's yours to own. And you can actually have your own personal virtual retreat next weekend.
Correct. Yeah, it's designed for you to be able to do it on your own time.
Yeah, it includes morning fitness, workshops with our team, meal prep, meal planning. We actually have meal prep sessions recorded. We have yoga, especially if you're new to yoga or meditation and you want to start building that into your lifestyle. Each day we offer a yoga and meditation, and just lots of Q&A, lots of recorded, amazing recorded content. So check that out for sure.
And then to answer this question about potatoes, so if you go to YouTube, you will see this video on Chef AJ's channel right here. It says why carbs are actually the answer to reversing diabetes interview. All right. So this one right here, you see Chef AJ's beautiful face right there. Okay. I would highly recommend watching that from start to finish. Just commit, hour and a half, 2 hours to watching that bad boy. In that one, I go into grave detail here about why the idea that carbohydrates are bad for you is actually it's not bad science. It is anti-science. It is literally the opposite of science. Okay. It's very easy to point a finger at carbohydrates. People refer to them as carbs. It's very easy to point a finger at carbs as the enemy when it comes to diabetes, saying carbs are bad for you. Don't eat fruits, don't eat potatoes, don't eat starchy vegetables, don't eat legumes, don't eat whole grains, because every time you do, your glucose goes up. Okay, it's just a result of a underlying disease known as insulin resistance. Okay, it is a symptom of insulin resistance. So if you want to get to a point where you can eat fruits, potatoes, starchy vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, rather than focusing on those foods, what you have to do is you have to go backwards one step and say, am I insulin resistant? what causes insulin resistance, how do I measure insulin resistance, and how do I reverse insulin resistance? So I want you to go to the root cause of the problem. If you go to the root cause of the problem and figure out what this whole insulin resistance thing is, then you can reverse it. And then after it is reversed, or as it is being reversed, you can then start to put in the fruits, the potatoes, the starchy vegetables, the legumes, and the whole grains. And all of a sudden your blood glucose becomes so much more manageable. It's a fun process. So highly recommend watching that. I'll give you the Cliff's Notes here real quick in 5 seconds. Insulin resistance is caused by the overconsumption of dietary fat. Period. End of story. Insulin resistance is caused by the consumption of dietary fat in excess. If you can wrap your head around that concept, and if you can identify the foods that are actually high in fat in your diet, and you minimize those foods, just watch as your blood glucose becomes instantly more controllable. And when that happens, the world is your mango.
The world, I got one. The world is your oyster mushroom.
The world is your oyster mushroom. That's good.
Right. And I'm going to post a link to that video because people are asking, because similarly, we have a comment. Oh, come on, jump screen. There we go. From Roxana, fruits don't work. If I eat, say, a bit of watermelon, my sugars spike and I get kidney pains. The only way my prediabetes goes away if I keep my carbs level low like keto. Well, look at the next video we did with Robbie, who basically eats only fruit. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
I know it can be a very weird concept to hear people like us say, oh, fruits are good for you. Potatoes are good for you. I want you to eat more of them. And you're like, no, you don't understand. When I eat them, my blood glucose goes high. When I eat them, I feel like crap. When I eat them, my energy levels go down the tubes. Okay. I get it. That is totally real. And I'm not going to take that away from you. But again, you have to first take one step backwards and go reverse the underlying cause of that problem. And then when you do, now you've opened the door for an increased opportunity to eat more of those foods. That's what you have to do.
That's why it's so helpful to be in a program. And there's one that is perfect for these people called Mastering Diabetes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Were you going to say something?
Would love to help. Well, no, I mean, he answered beautifully, always. I'm always like, but
this
no.
is I think this is the one question that you get probably more than any other question, just like regular vegans get, where do you get your protein? Because there is such a misunderstanding. And the thing about keto is, imagine if the whole world went keto, we can't have a planet with people eating keto. We're not going to have a planet if people keep doing that. So kind of, it's a very selfish way to reverse your diabetes, if you ask me, when you can do it with potatoes, rice, beans, and fruit at a fraction of the cost.
You're absolutely right. And I know we don't have time to get into it today, but here's a ridiculous concept. The people in the world of the ketogenic diet, they use the term reverse. They say, if you eat a ketogenic diet, you can reverse diabetes. But from a physiological perspective, it is, I'm not going to say challenging. I'm going to say it is biologically impossible to reverse diabetes using a ketogenic diet. And I'm going to do an entire video series about why the biology explains that eating a high fat diet is not possible to reverse diabetes. So it gives you the optics that your diabetes is reversed because your A1C comes down, your fasting glucose comes down, your post-meal blood glucose comes down. But underlying, the level of insulin resistance has crept up so much that when you try and eat a fruit or a potato or some kind of starchy vegetable, your glucose goes through the roof. So as long as you avoid carbohydrates, everything is fine. But the minute you put in carbohydrates and you challenge your digestive system to metabolizing those carbohydrates, good luck, game over, drive home safely. Okay, so that's the problem.
Can I say something real quick on that? So when I was first diagnosed, my blood sugar reading on my labs was only 117, which really isn't that bad. But my insulin was very high. And that is a big indication that I had insulin resistance in my body. And when I started eating this way, I was afraid of fruit. I met Robbie down in Hollywood for a farmer's market, and he was trying to get me to eat fruit. And I was like, you're crazy. I cannot eat fruit. I can't eat carbs. So when I finally gave in and started eating the way I was supposed to be eating, my insulin literally plummeted to 4.5, on my readings and stuff. And my body was not dealing with all the inflammation it was working the way it was supposed to be working. So, you just have to take the leap of faith and try the program, try what's being said to you, because the science supports it.
You know, Cyrus, I'm wondering if you think possibly, and I'm not saying that it's not true what these people are saying, but if they're unable to do it, do you think it could be because they're just still keeping their fat too high, so that they're eating carbs, but they're keeping their fat too high, and that's why they're not able to do this the way you teach?
Oftentimes the answer is yes, 100% yes, no questions asked.
Yeah, and what we see, especially at the beginning of this process, so we actually in the book outline a 2-step process for people who are more sort of like a higher degree of insulin resistance. And if your biomarkers are showing that you're in that higher end or the higher end of the spectrum of insulin resistance, absolutely, eating watermelon, eating fruits, eating certain carbohydrates are going to cause more elevations at the beginning of the process. So the idea is that, like Cyrus mentioned, knowing how insulin resistant you are, and I like to call it the insulin resistance spectrum, right? And on that spectrum, you've got people who have, kind of non-diabetic A1C, you're at your ideal weight, your cholesterol is normal, all of your biomarkers are in the green light zone. And then you have these varying degrees of color. So you move to yellow light and then red light. So if your biomarkers are showing that you have a higher degree of insulin resistance, high A1C, elevated body weight, high blood pressure, cholesterol levels, all of those things are in the red zone, and you're requiring a large amount of medication to manage them, it's a high degree of insulin resistance. And that makes it very, very, very difficult to start eating those types of fruits. And especially fruits that are what I call the juicy fruits, like watermelon in particular, because it's lower in fiber content. It's very juicy. It's going to impact your blood glucose much faster. And that's a super common experience that we see over and over again. So again, in our coaching program, we address those types of concerns, and we target them, and we say, you know what, certain foods may not be on the green light list for you at this moment. And here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to integrate them. And here's how we're going to slowly do maybe like a 2-step process where we add more lower carbohydrate foods at the beginning. So we do have a process for how to help you navigate that when your blood glucose is high at the beginning of the process.
Absolutely. And this idea that like patience is necessary is important, because I'm not asking you to wait months or years for your blood glucose to start changing. Not at all. I'm asking you to wait days to weeks. Okay. And I truly do mean that, because we see it over and over and over again. Right. So if today you demonstrate the symptomology of insulin resistance, and you, as a result of that, you are not able to consume carbohydrates, you're carbohydrate intolerant, you can't expect that is going to change tomorrow. You can't. It's unreasonable. But I can guarantee you that if you apply the Mastering Diabetes method the way they would describe, and do the 2-step method just like Kylie describes, by number one, lowering your fat intake for 1 week, every single day, consistent, less than 30 grams per day. Then on the 8th day, you can start to slowly increase your intake of fruits, slowly increase your intake of potatoes, slowly increase your intake of legumes and whole grains. Then you can do it and watch as your blood glucose becomes very, very, very controllable with those carbohydrate rich foods. Okay. So I'm asking you to be patient, but not so patient that all of a sudden months have to go by. I'm talking, days, a week here, a week there. And when you do it that way, by the time 30 days have gone by, you can have changed your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, and really get to a point where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I literally have not been able to eat these fruits for years, or these foods for years. And now I can do it and my blood glucose doesn't budge. That's how you reverse an underlying condition. You got to be very systematic in when you do it. And we have to get away from this idea that you just because you can't do something now, just because you can't eat fruit now, you can't eat watermelon now, you can't eat bananas now, doesn't mean that you can't do it tomorrow. Doesn't mean that you can't do it next week. But you got to do the right things at the right time in order to equip your liver and muscles with the ability to metabolize carbohydrates properly. When you do that, then the world becomes your oyster mushroom.
Oyster mushroom. Well, Yolanda says, this is awesome. I've been whole food plant-based for at least a year, vegan for 4 years. I just started oil-free about 4 months ago. My A1C was just tested. It was 5.9. I thought it would be better. I am joining. I need a coach. I'm missing something. So good. Congratulations, Yolanda. You will love it.
That's great. That's great. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that.
And we also have multiple tools. The tool belt for mastering diabetes includes a big portion of it is green light eating, for sure. No doubt that is a big part of the transition. But it also incorporates other elements of lifestyle that help you take your whole life and add in more and more things that are going to support you in your long-term health. Exercise. Sometimes intermittent fasting schedule works really well for people. Creating sleep habits, really healthy sleep habits, because we know that there's a high correlation between, interrupted sleep or disrupted sleep or not having enough sleep and elevated blood glucose. So we also really tailor our coaching to what your needs are at the time. And that's the other thing about working with a coach that's just so wonderful, is that we follow the pillars of lifestyle medicine. And that includes things like your overall well-being, your sleep, avoiding, maybe there's certain things that do need to be avoided to help promote overall wellness. And that's also really fun to explore,
It's
right?
a great way to describe it.
The whole lifestyle.
Yep.
Nice. So Blaze and Beat says, I'm type 2 diabetic with a fatty liver. Should I first start low carb veggies and fruits on this plan to get my liver normal, then go to the high carb options? Are you familiar with the research done by Dr. Khambatta Kylie, PCRM, where I think it was like something like 4 weeks on a low fat, whole food plant-based diet, they actually reverse fatty liver?
Yeah. So we love Khambatta Kylie. We love Dr. Neil Barnard. We love Dr. Jim Loomis. They're all part of the PCRM network. And we're actually in the process of doing some research together with them, because we're sort of exploring what happens to people on a whole food plant-based diet living with type 1 diabetes in particular. But we're very familiar with their research, and Khambatta Kylie is a complete research machine. But just like you're saying, when you're living with fatty liver disease, a simple way to think about it is that fatty liver disease is a high degree of insulin resistance in your liver. That's what you can think. It's like advanced insulin resistance in your liver. Okay. And just like the name implies, fatty liver disease, the way that you develop a fatty liver is by consuming an excess quantity of dietary fat. In the ketogenic world, they will tell you over and over and over again that the reason you got fatty liver disease is not because you're eating too much fat. It's because you're eating too many carbs, and the carbs turn into fat. Even though that theory has been debunked in medical research multiple times. Okay. Just as a quick aside, I did my PhD in the laboratory of Dr. Mark Hellerstein at UC Berkeley. Dr. Mark Hellerstein is the world's expert on the metabolic process known as de novo lipogenesis, which is the conversion of carbohydrate to fat. And he has proven, using the most sophisticated instrumentation and laboratory techniques called stable isotope measurements, that de novo lipogenesis, which is the conversion of carbohydrate into fat, does not happen in human beings at a significant rate. We have literally, as human beings, we have evolved away from the DNL pathway. And as a result of that, this common rhetoric that carbohydrates turn into fat is just a complete biological fallacy in today's world. Okay. It may have been true literally 1 million years ago in our evolutionary past, but in today's world, it doesn't happen anymore in human beings. Okay. Point being is that fatty liver disease is a condition of excess fat. And when you consume excess dietary fat, oftentimes it can manifest inside of your liver. So if you're trying to reverse fatty liver disease, what you have to do is migrate towards a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. The key here is low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. When you do that, the stored fat inside of your liver has an opportunity to get oxidized or burned. And when that happens, the fat deposits become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the insulin resistance condition inside of your liver becomes a little bit more relaxed. It's like you're releasing a lot of the insulin resistant pressure on your liver. And as a result of that, your liver starts to regain its ability to consume and metabolize carbohydrates exactly the way it was designed. Right. So it's a phenomenal process.
In Mark Hellerstein, Dr. Hellerstein, I think you introduced him to me, and he was actually a guest on my show, and he blew me away, and I'd love to have him back. So there's a question from Ajiki. Are all fats created equal? I thought it was saturated fats that gum up the insulin receptor, not all fats.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is you are right. Saturated fat is the most problematic. Actually, I lied. Trans fat is the most problematic culprit. Trans fats come from partially hydrogenated vegetable oils in particular, and they come from foods that you buy in the grocery store that have, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, partially hydrogenated canola oil, and so on and so forth. So when you're consuming trans fats are absolute napalm for your vasculature. They can increase your LDL cholesterol, they can cause atherosclerosis, and they can make you insulin resistant. Those are the worst offenders, no questions asked. The second worst offender is saturated fat. when you consume saturated fat in excess quantities, that is literally a direct signal to the insulin receptors inside of your liver and muscle to stop working or to slow down and work less, right? So if like I'm saturated fat and Kylie is an insulin receptor inside of my liver, what will happen is that the saturated fat will literally come and it will prevent the insulin receptor from working properly. So that the next time you eat carbohydrate, all of a sudden this insulin receptor is no longer as functional. It just literally cannot respond to insulin inside of the blood. And that's a problem. So what you do is by reducing your saturated fat intake, the saturated fat that is causing this problem of blocking the insulin receptor, that pressure is released. And as a result of that, these insulin receptors, billions of insulin receptors inside of your liver and inside of your muscle become active once again. And when they do, then you can start to eat carbohydrate rich food. You can start to respond to insulin, and insulin action inside of your liver and muscle increases dramatically. And that's when you can actually start to become carbohydrate tolerant, which is the pathway to reversing type 2 diabetes altogether.
So Tess says are avocados okay?
So there are, I know, but Tammy's like, I want to talk about this. Let me just talk about
She's
avocados.
like, oh,
I know what Tammy wants to say. So we actually have a system of identifying foods in our program, and we would put an avocado in what we call the yellow light category because it is higher in fat. And if you look at the total number of grams of fat per day, Cyrus mentioned earlier, keeping it below 30 grams per day is going to get you your very best results, your best outcomes in reversing insulin resistance. So an avocado in itself has around 25 grams of fat just from one avocado. And as most of us know, it's very easy to overeat avocado. So we put it in the yellow light category as a food to minimize and keep in minimal amounts and really focus on measuring your food, understanding where your nutrients are coming from, so that you can make that decision about how much fat you're going to eat per meal and then per day to reverse to meet your health goals. Really, it's really about you moving towards your health goals. So are avocados nutritious, and do they have some nutrient density? Yes, they do. Are they also high in fat? Yes, they are.
Correct.
So that combination makes them a plant-based food, but a high-fat plant-based food. And that's what we work on in our program, is really identifying those foods that are potentially causing more insulin resistance in your body, and how to take them out slowly or minimize them so that you can meet your health goals.
Can I say something?
Please.
So one of the things I failed to mention, which was really important when you were talking about keto and stuff, when I started mastering diabetes, I already had stage 2 kidney disease. That was wiped out within less than 3 months after I started mastering diabetes. I mean, totally gone, not an issue anymore.
Nice.
Yeah, stage 2 CKD. We talked about this actually in the previous session that we did last week. Chronic kidney disease can be a pain in the butt. It can absolutely be a pain. In the same way that fatty liver disease progresses in stages, from stage 1 to from insulin resistance to liver cirrhosis to liver necrosis, and then eventually the requirement for a transplant. Chronic kidney disease can also progress from stage 1, 2 to 3 to 4. And when you're in stage 4, that's when you can get end stage renal failure, which requires dialysis and potentially even a transplant. So what you're saying, Anna, is that you went from stage 2 CKD back to stage 1 CKD, back to stage 0 CKD, gone, doesn't exist anymore.
No
and
more.
It's amazing, because that's another side effect. It's a side effect of eating a whole food plant-based diet. Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, and losing weight, that's the other side effect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are the greatest side effects ever devised, right? So I'm very happy to hear this.
So Stephen Turner made sorry that I keep doing this with my life, guys. It's 117 today, but Stephen Turner made a hilarious comment that could be a t-shirt. I've got 99 problems and de novo lipogenesis is not one of them.
High five.
I like it, Stephen. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's it. And people are asking, well, what do you do about high triglycerides, and is dried fruit okay to eat?
Oh, yes. Okay. What do you do about high triglycerides? So we actually filmed an entire masterclass on this topic. because triglycerides are highly, highly misinterpreted and highly misunderstood. Okay, so here's a simple way to think about it. Triglycerides in your blood. Let me kind of give you like a quick biochemistry lesson here so that most people don't understand where triglycerides come from and what they are. And once you do, it just helps you understand this process, right? So triglycerides are the storage form of fatty acids in your body, okay? When you eat red meat, when you eat white meat, dairy products, when you have olive oil, when you consume avocados, anything that contains a significant fat quantity, you are consuming triglyceride. That is the storage form of fat inside of food, inside of animals, and inside of humans. Okay. So a triglyceride is literally nothing more than a glycerol backbone. Okay. So glycerol is a type of molecule it's a carbohydrate. Okay. So it's a glycerol backbone with 1, 2, 3 fatty acids that are covalently attached to it. Okay. So that's a triglyceride. So this structure of glycerol plus 1, 2, 3 fatty acids is what you consume in your food. It goes and travels down in your digestive system. It gets into your small intestine. And in your small intestine is where the bulk of lipid metabolism occurs. So you have a whole collection of enzymes that are responsible for tearing apart the triglyceride and separating the glycerol from the fatty acids, and then absorbing the fatty acids through the wall of the small intestine to put them inside of your blood, where they can be transported to other tissues. Okay. So the triglyceride is deconstructed inside of your digestive system. The fatty acids travel throughout your blood inside of these things called lipoprotein particles, which are things like LDL and VLDL. And then once they get inside of your liver, they are reconstructed back into triglycerides. So your liver is effectively a triglyceride manufacturing facility. And when you have high triglycerides, one of two things is generally true. Number one, the amount of triglyceride in your diet is too high. Number two, your liver is over manufacturing triglycerides. Either or both of those can be true. So the way to lower your triglyceride value is to, number one, lower your triglyceride value inside of the food that you're consuming. Again, lower your total intake of fat. That's the easiest way to do it, by getting below 30 grams per day. When your dietary triglyceride level is low, what that enables your liver to do is it enables your liver to become, to start to oxidize the stored triglyceride that it has on board. And as a result of that, it will slow down the rate at which it exports triglycerides into your blood. So the triglyceride manufacturing process will slow down. And as a result of that, there's less triglycerides going into your blood. So the way to lower your triglycerides is by doing two things. Number one, lower your dietary fat intake. And number two, the net result of that is that your liver will become more functional. Okay. When you do that, you will likely see within a short period of time that even if your triglycerides tend to fluctuate up just a little bit, which happens in some people, it's temporary. Don't worry about it. Let your triglycerides float up a little bit. And then over the course of 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, all of a sudden your triglyceride levels will come down to levels that you may have never seen before.
Amazing.
So while Cyrus was talking, the baby has been like bouncing around, loving science.
We got a super nerd in there.
Baby's like, woohoo, more science.
I love this is great. I'm just seeing if there's anything else you guys want to ask the masters of mastering diabetes.
Well, yeah, this has been awesome. And actually, and follow up with triglycerides, that they are a little sticky. Triglycerides, we see time and time again that somebody might actually maintain higher triglyceride levels, even though other biomarkers are LDL, total cholesterol, A1C has improved. It does take a little more time for the triglycerides to catch up. And we do see, maybe 6-9 months, triglyceride levels sometimes increase even a little bit in the process.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so again, like Cyrus mentioned before, patience is a really good friend of reversing insulin resistance.
It's required.
And giving it a full year to let your body really adjust and work through all of these processes can be your best friend, really. Giving yourself time.
Right. Well, keep turning the light off. Here's an interesting question from Molly. How do you test for insulin resistance? And Abjiki wants to know, can you talk about waist circumference in insulin resistance?
Okay, the insulin resistance checklist. For that, I turn it over to Kylie Buckner.
Yes. So this is such a great question that we had so many times. And of course, I'm a nurse. And if anybody here is a nurse, you know, we love checklists. So I developed the insulin resistance checklist, and Cyrus and I sat around one night trying to figure out a name for it. And so we named it pilaf, which is kind of fun because, you know, rice pilaf, you know, it's kind of a
Who doesn't like that?
plant-based little play on words. So one of the ways you can measure your level of insulin resistance is through your biomarkers. And if you look at our insulin resistance checklist, we sort of navigate that for you. So the P in pilaf stands for pressure or blood pressure. The I is for
Ideal body weight.
The L is for lipids. The A is for A1C, and the F is for your fasting blood glucose. So if all 5 of those numbers and biomarkers are in range, then you're in the green level of insulin resistance or non-insulin resistant possibly. As your biomarkers start increasing, if you're being medicated for any of those 5 biomarkers, if you're on medication for blood pressure or cholesterol or glucose, that puts you maybe in the yellow light range or closer to the red light range. So understanding where you are on that spectrum and where you are on using that checklist is a really, really helpful tool. And you can find that checklist on our website.
Yeah.
masteringdiabetes.org.
.org/something. Don't remember. So the reason we had to develop that checklist, just for full clarity here, is because currently there's a lot of like devices on the market that you can use to measure lots of things, right? You can go to the doctor, you can get your fasting blood glucose measured, you can get your A1C measured, you can wear a continuous glucose monitor, and you can get your glucose measured every 5 minutes, right? To this day, there does not exist a device or a test that definitively measures insulin resistance. So as a result of that, you have to infer insulin resistance from a number of different biomarkers that are all affected by your level of insulin sensitivity. So if there was a device or if there was some kind of test where I could just sort of like scan Kylie and be like, okay, it says right here, Kylie is a medium level of insulin resistance, then awesome, that would be great. But since that doesn't exist, we have to learn about other biomarkers, the P, the I, the L, the A, the F. And then when you really understand what those are, and you can get yourself into normal range for blood pressure, get to your ideal body weight, get to a normal A1C, a non-diabetic A1C, get to ideal lipids, and then also a optimal fasting blood glucose, then those are all indicators that your insulin sensitivity is increasing, and that is an indicator that you are now reversing insulin resistance completely.
Great. What about the waist circumference?
Okay, so the waist circumference, what's the actual question then? How does the waist circumference affect?
Okay, it skipped. Can you please comment on waist circumference and insulin resistance?
For sure. Okay, so here's a simple way to think about your waist circumference. There's like 2 types of bodies. Like when you become overweight, there's sort of like 2 general classes of shape to the way that your body can appear. So a lot of people tend to carry excess body weight literally like right here in their abdomen. Okay. And then there's some people who carry excess body weight in their hips and in their butt. Okay. So the people who carry it in their abdomen are referred to as having an apple shape. And the people who carry it in their butt and in their hips are referred to as having a pear shape. Okay. So either you're an apple or you're a pear. Okay. Now, the two.
You're never a meme sapota?
Mame sapote, yeah. You are neither a mame sapote nor an oyster mushroom. But the reason it's important is because the 2 shapes are not created equal. Okay, so let's put it this way. Suppose I put on 30 pounds. If I put on 30 pounds and I'm an apple, it turns out that the apple shape is more dangerous than the pear shape. Okay. So the location at which you store excess body fat matters. Okay. And the reason for that is because this area inside of your abdomen is known as your visceral depot, your visceral adipose depot. That's a scientific fancy way of describing the region surrounding your viscera, AKA your digestive organs. Okay. So if you have visceral adiposity, that means that your digestive organs in this compartment are actually at risk. And they are in an inflamed state because you are carrying excess body fat right here, literally right next to them. If instead you are carrying that excess body weight or that excess adiposity lower, and that again, it's in your butt, it's in your hips, it's like down here, okay, you are still, sorry about that, you are still overweight, but that location is further away from your viscera, and as a result of that, it's less dangerous. Okay, so the people that have the apple body shape tend to have a larger waist because again, the weight is, the excess body weight is in their abdomen, so that increases the size of your waist. You can also get a slightly increased waist size with a pear-shaped body, but those who store the fat higher end up having a larger and larger waist over the course of time. Okay, so the goal is to get to your ideal body weight. And when you get to your ideal body weight, that excess adiposity, whether it's in your viscera or whether it's down in your hips and your butt, fades away. And when you can get to that point, then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about whether or not you're an apple or pear because you're a human and you don't have, you're not excess weight at that point.
Nice. Carolyn says, if someone is pre-diabetic with a super high BP, should they follow this program?
Pre-diabetic with super high BP?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that is
we're
exactly
for you.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're pre-diabetic, that means that we can help you prevent moving to that next level of type 2 diabetes. And, that's the goal, is to reverse the progression of insulin resistance, which will lead you to eventually a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes if you're not able to make changes. So yeah, that we are totally for you. And blood pressure, let me just tell you, that is one of the other side effects of reversing insulin resistance, is that your blood pressure will come into range as well. And many people in our program, we see it time and again, reducing blood pressure medication, blood pressure going into normal range, having to make changes quickly. In fact, at some of our retreats, we've had people who have been in our retreats for 4 days only. And within those 4 days, they're leaving the retreat, going home to their doctors and getting taken off of their blood pressure medication after 4 days of working with us.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, it's so powerful. So yes, this program is absolutely for you.
I saw a really good question from Lissa, and it goes so fast. But I think it was about like how to tell your doctor about this if you want to do this. Where did your question go, Lissa? I saw it. Here it is. What is a good approach to telling your doctor to learn the Mastering Diabetes method? What I'm going to do is there's one here. I'd give them the book if they'd read it.
Yeah, so I like that, Chef AJ.
Yeah.
Here's the main reason why you could why the book is probably the best thing to give to them, is because the book has 800 scientific references in it. Okay, this is not just some made up story that Cyrus and Kylie and Robbie just decided to devise to deceive the world. Okay, we scoured the scientific evidence to really come up with a coherent story that was not only backed by our own personal experiences and backed by the experiences of people like Tammy and Anna, but has a basis in evidence-based rigorous science. And this rigorous science goes back to 1920. Literally 100 years of rigorous science backs up this approach. So doctors are always in search of evidence. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Where's the data? Show me the data. So you hand them the book and you say, you want the data? The data is in here. Look at this data. Look at this evidence. You simply cannot deny it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best thing. It's very credible. But I don't mind
So
saying
can I just add to that? So my doctor still 4 years later writes in my medical records that I'm diabetic and that I'm refusing to take all medications. So,
I'm sorry, that's just funny.
Okay, right.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is still current. And I asked her about it this last visit I had with her this year. And she basically just says that you cannot reverse diabetes, which I'm like, hello, we don't have any signs of it anymore. So why are we reporting that I have it, for one? But for two, she says, I asked her why she doesn't talk to people about this way of eating. And she says, because people want the quick fix and her job is just to save their lives. And that's why medication is the quick fix. And it's very sad. So what I would suggest to whoever placed the question, I would suggest do your research, find a doctor that can support your process. What I liked about my doctor is pretty smart and she understands a lot about complex carbs and everything else. So we had good conversations. She considered me her star pupil. She wished all of her patients were as easy to get on board as I was and make her look good, as she put it. But she just didn't buy into it fully and would not read the book. I tried to give her the book. I tried to give my diabetic counselor, Neil Bernard's book. I took it in. I bought 2 of them and took it to them. And she opened it up and she said, "Oh, this was written in 2008. It's irrelevant for Bernard's book."
Oh gosh. Oh
So,
yeah, that's dangerous.
But I would suggest we have all these telehealth doctors, and you got Lori Marvis, as we've mentioned on this program today. She's certified in all 50 states now?
All 50.
So, right. So there's not an excuse for not getting a doctor that understands what we're dealing with and what we're going through and how to get us to the point that we need to get to.
Yeah. So this idea here that like, Tammy, you still have type 2 diabetes and you're just refusing to listen to what I'm saying and you're refusing to take medication, right? You see this a lot in the heart disease world, right? People say, oh, okay, like you still have high cholesterol. You're just not displaying the symptoms of high cholesterol anymore. And a lot of this verbiage and this rhetoric comes from the world of addiction, right? If you used to be an alcoholic, right, and you identified as an alcoholic and you went to AA and you got recovery, what they tell you in AA is they say, oh, look, you are still an addict. You will be an addict your entire life, but you are just dealing with your addiction. And you're at a point now where you're, not using alcoholic substances anymore, but you're still an addict. Okay. And so that sort of like gets inside of people's heads and they're like, okay, cool. I was an addict. I still am an addict, but I'm just not choosing to use alcohol. Right. Unfortunately, you can't apply that same methodology to chronic disease. It just doesn't work anymore. Right. It would be like me saying, oh yeah, I broke my arm when I was 4 years old and it healed, right? But if I were to say, oh, I broke my arm when I was 4 years old, I still have a broken arm, but
yeah,
it happened 25 years ago. No, don't worry, my arm is still broken, right? And the answer is like, no, your arm's not broken anymore because your arm stitched itself back together and your arm, you regrew bone mass and there's connective tissue and now it's a functional arm again, right? The same type of thing exists in the chronic disease world, right? There are some chronic diseases which are irreversible. Type 1 diabetes is irreversible, right? You cannot reverse type 1 diabetes in today's day and age. You absolutely can reverse type 2. You absolutely can reverse prediabetes. You absolutely can reverse heart disease. You absolutely can reverse some forms of cancer. And so this idea that like you are a diabetic, will always be a diabetic is just like, it's bad science.
Mm. Yeah. And for, if you are working with your doctor, with any healthcare provider, share what your goals are, share what your plan is, offer the resources like Chef AJ mentions, share the book, share the things that you've learned that resonate for you, and see if you can partner with your provider. Ask to partner with them to meet your health goals. And if your provider's unwilling to meet you where you are and unwilling to work with you, then there's always a second opinion. There's always another option. You can find another doctor, plant-based telehealth team. There's so many great resources out there. So, but I always recommend starting with how do I partner with this person first, rather than create that conflict up front. How do we partner together? How do we work together? And then if that person's not willing to do that with you, then maybe that's your answer. Maybe you don't give them the book and you just find a new doctor,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great call.
There's so many of the plant-based doctors now and lifestyle medicine doctors that are
Absolutely.
telehealth. Doctors are True North, Dr. Marvis. There's so many. Dr. Campbell's now starting to do an online business, that Dr. Tom Campbell, that is. So maybe Tammy needs to start saying I'm diabetic in recovery.
Yeah. People say I'm in recovery, I'm in remission.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question from Marcia. Do you use this program on seniors? Is it safe for them? They use it on children.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm actually glad that you asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kylie drives this point home really well, which is that you can apply the Mastering Diabetes method to any age. And when I say any age, I literally mean from the age of like 6 months, 2 months, all the way upwards of 150 years old.
Yeah.
It is applicable all throughout the lifespan, and there's no age that's excluded from benefiting from a whole food plant-based diet. Some of our most successful stories and most successful reversals come from people who told us at the beginning, they said, hey, Cyrus, hey, Kylie, I'm too old for your program. And we're like, thank you for your opinion. I don't agree with you, right? They say, oh, whatever, I'm 83 years old. There's nothing you can do to improve me. I have 83 years of disease history. And I go, thank you for your opinion. Would you like to try it? And then they say, okay, fine. They try it. And all of a sudden, boom, their glucose is down. Their fasting blood glucose comes down. Their A1C comes down. They have more energy and they're more able-bodied, right? So the answer is, yeah, if you're elderly, whatever you consider yourself to be, if you're still alive, talk to
you're
us.
on this, but well, and I like to see it as being inspiring at any age. You know, there's no age limit on this, and you are never too old to make changes, and you can always change your mind on something. So that's something I've really, again, gained so much appreciation for, people's willingness to make changes and ability to make changes. We've completely underestimated that in the healthcare world. Is to Tammy's doctor's point, you know, she made that point that her doctor said, I don't recommend this because people don't want to do it. And we don't believe that that's true. I believe that people are very willing to take control of their health and their choices because of what I've seen and what I've experienced with our members and our clients, the people who follow our program. It's so inspiring. And I've been inspired by so many people throughout their lifespan. Some of my clients, I have clients as young as 2. I have clients as old as into their 80s and 90s, and they're living wonderful plant-based lives. And it's really exciting to be a part of that.
So my dad changed his diet at age 78. So he went in, he had diverticulitis. He passed out in the ER. From blood loss, and they were going to remove 3 to 5 feet of his colon. And I just looked at him and said, you can do the surgery and wear a colostomy bag your whole life, which he golfs every day, or you can change your diet. And if that doesn't work for you, because the doctors were telling him it's not going to work, you're too far damaged, there's no way of healing that damage you've done. I said, then you go back and you do the surgery, but surgery should always be a last resort. And here he is, he's just turned 82. He's living his best life. He hasn't had a flare since he started eating this way. And he's not strict. It's just making even the littlest changes that will make the biggest differences in our health.
So true. So true. I could not agree with you more. Absolutely could not agree with you more.
Okay, so Carolyn has a question actually about the New York Times bestselling book, Mastering Diabetes. And it is, does the book address prediabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity? Definitely prediabetes, because it says so right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. The answer is yes, yes, yes. We talk about weight gain. We talk about excess adiposity, which is, weight gain and obesity. We talk about hypertension at length. We talk about high cholesterol. We talk about fatty liver disease, because all of these are referred to as comorbidities of living with insulin resistance. A comorbidity is just a fancy scientific super nerd way of saying things that travel with diabetes. So all of those are like tentacles or comorbidities of diabetes. And so you cannot talk about diabetes unless you're knowledgeable about all of the other things that come along for the ride. So if you're living with, hypertension, if you're, overweight or you're obese, pick up the book, because it definitely can help change a lot of the current sort of narrative in the world of, diabetes and beyond.
Great. And here's a question about a wonderful doctor that I'd love to have on the show if he were not dead. And that is from Jeff. Is it true that Dr. Walter Kempner was reversing diabetes with a rice and fruit diet back in the 50s?
Oh my Lord, Dr. Walter Kempner is one of our favorites.
We love Dr. Kempner.
If Dr. Walter Kempner were alive right now, I would literally run like a fangirl and jump on him and give him a giant hug. No question. Long story short, Dr. Walter Kempner back in 1950, in the 50s, was working. He's a professor at Duke University. And as he was studying chronic diseases, he decided that he was going to be the first person to try and reverse what's called malignant hypertension. Malignant hypertension was thought to be incurable at the time, which is it's a form of hypertension that had never been cured before, right? Or let's put it this way. It is high blood pressure that had never been cured without the use of pharmaceutical medication. And people were saying it's incurable. And he was like, no, it's not. I can cure it. And I can prove to you that I can cure it. I think it's caused by excess animal product consumption. I don't think it has anything to do with carbohydrates at all. And so they were like, great, how are you going to prove that? So he devised the rice fruit diet, in which there are only 4 food groups that you can consume. Number 1, fruits. Number 2, fruit juice. Number 3, white rice of all rices. And number 4, table sugar. I kid you not. fruit juice, white rice, and table sugar, which, funny, are 4 food groups that the current diabetes world says, no, 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 heck no. No fruit juice, no white rice, no table sugar. He fed people nothing but these 4 food groups. And he basically said, I want you to eat these things and let's see what happens to you over the course of time. He published his results over and over and over again and determined that not only could he get people's blood pressures from like 235 over 145, like way down to like 130 over 80 or 125 over 80, and technically reverse malignant hypertension altogether. But inadvertently, he also reversed type 2 diabetes. He wasn't even trying, but he did on accident. And he also significantly improved the health of many of his patients' livers. Okay. And he also helped people lose a significant amount of weight. And so he went down in history as being the guy that reversed malignant hypertension and the guy that also reversed type 2 diabetes. And his work had been replicated over and over and over again, into the future in the 1970s by Dr. James Anderson, and then Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Gerald Schulman, and a whole collection of other researchers leading up to today.
Well, it's just, why don't more doctors know about his work,
Well,
Yeah,
nutrition is not really taught in medical school at all.
it's not.
I mean, in my nursing program, when I was studying to become a nurse, I took more nutrition hours in nursing than most doctors ever get in any of their training. So it's the average is less than 20 hours of nutrition training, and most are more like under 5 in most medical school curriculums. So nutrition education is not part of the current curriculum, and really anywhere in the world even. It's all pathophysiology and also disease management through medication. And it's an unfortunate part of the current system, the current healthcare system.
Doctors spend 10,000 hours learning medicine. 10,000 hours. They are true experts when it comes to the coursework, plus the rotations, the clinical work, and then also doing residency and beyond. 10,000 hours is a lot of hours. Of those 10,000 hours, they spend an average of 20 learning nutrition. There's no way you could become an expert on nutrition in 20 hours. You can't even get you through chapter 1 in nutrition in 20 hours. Good luck, right? So unfortunately, they don't have the evidence basis. Not their fault. It's the medical curriculum's fault. And hopefully one day, medical schools will prioritize nutrition training and change that for good.
Right. But, even doctors that don't know nutrition seem to have heard of Dr. Dean Ornish, but so few seem to have heard of Dr. Kempner. It's too bad. So Nancy says, is this program or will this program be available in Spanish?
Oh, good question. Good question. So the answer is, we actually ran a Spanish summit, like a collection of interviews. And we actually do have a Spanish program. And so if you're
we do have coaches that are Spanish speaking.
That's right.
What's it called? Diabetes no mas?
Okay, so here's what I'd recommend. If you're interested in this in the Spanish program, write an email to us at team@masteringdiabetes.org. So TEAM@masteringdiabetes.org. Explain to us, I'm looking for a Spanish program. I speak Spanish, and we can help you out. We can actually put you in contact with a coach who speaks fluent Spanish. And really get you to a point where, you're doing this entire thing in Spanish and it really works for you.
Wow. Catherine, who's watching live, says, I'm a surgeon. I had a total of 4 hours of nutrition in medical school, and that was as an elective. And both of my brothers are doctors, and they said even the nutrition part, it wasn't on the board. So it's like they might have learned it, but they didn't really have to remember it even.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. If it's not board certified, if it's not a subject that's required for your board exams, you're not going to, in other words, when you take the SAT because you're preparing for college, right? What is it? It's math and verbal, right? You don't go study world history in order to pass the SAT. It's useless, right? Same thing. You're not going to go study nutrition in order to pass a board exam that doesn't ask you any questions about nutrition. It's useless. So as a result of that, because it's not board certified, we got a huge problem.
Right. People I don't know if you want to talk about this online, but people are asking about the cost of the program, but I'm guessing there's different levels, and, a very affordable level is just to buy the book. And if it resonates with you, then join. This is like $20 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're transparent. We have, I'll tell you all the pricing. We have, depending on what level of coaching you're looking for, whether you want sort of like hands-off coaching and just sort of like a light touch, and like a purely digital experience, That costs them like $99 a month. If you want to be part of a Zoom video conference on a weekly basis where you're, with about 8 to 10 people every single week, which is exactly what Tammy had done, that costs about approximately $250 per month. And then if you want to do private coaching where you have a one-on-one private coach with you, and you can, you have a video conference or a phone call once a week with them, that costs about $600 a month. But here's the thing that differentiates the Mastering Diabetes program from every other health coaching program I've ever seen. Okay. We guarantee your results, period. End of story. We guarantee your results. If you come to the Mastering Diabetes program and you enroll in either the small group coaching program or the private coaching program, and we don't, number one, lower your blood glucose, and number two, help you achieve your ideal body weight, we will literally coach you for free until you do, period. End of story. There is no question about that. That happened to Anna. She was going through the process and she said, hey guys, I didn't get the results I was looking for. I'm a little bit frustrated right now. And I said, Anna, we're going to coach you for free until you do. And she got coaching for free and her life changed significantly in that process, right? So if there's anybody who's sitting there that's like frustrated, confused, apprehensive about this process, I want you to understand that we take our jobs incredibly seriously. This is a guaranteed process. And I want this literally to be the last coaching program that you ever have to do for your total body health, not just for your diabetes health, but for your overall health. Okay. I want you to go through the Mastering Diabetes method. I want you to do it for as long as you need to. And then at the end of that, be like, you know what? I'm out. I don't need any more coaching. I don't need any more medication. I just saved a ton of money on my medical care. I'm good. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys later. That's what I want.
Well, it's not fair to those of us without diabetes. You're so passionate. I wish I could work with you on something. I don't know. Do you have something for me? Because I love you guys. So
Jeff, AJ, we'll work with you on anything.
Yeah, figure something out. Kes says, Dr. Cyrus, do you have a YouTube channel that shows different types of meals and foods that you can make for yourself?
Okay, yeah. So we have a YouTube channel called Mastering Diabetes. Just you can go to YouTube and search for that. We don't specifically have like food demonstration videos on that channel yet. It's coming. And we are also in the process of trying to replicate what Chef AJ is doing here on YouTube to like grow an increasingly large audience. I'll put it this way. We are going on an all-out YouTube assault in a good way over the course of the next months to years. So take a second, go to Mastering Diabetes on YouTube and follow us if you're interested in this information. And trust me when I say, you're about to get hit with a lot of really, really, really cool information that can truly change your life or the life of somebody else that you know.
Right. And just don't do it. Don't do it at 11 a.m. Pacific time. That's my slot.
That's right.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, you reserve that slot.
Any other of the 23 hours. Stephanie says, how long is the coaching program?
Okay, the coaching program is actually there's no fixed time limit on the coaching program. Right? The average length of time that it takes somebody to fully reverse type 2 diabetes. Well, let me back up. It depends on your current state of health, right? If you're in the extremely diabetic state, then it's going to take longer than if you're sort of in the like kind of pre-diabetic state, right? But I will tell you this, the average length of time that it takes for somebody to go through the Mastering Diabetes method and fully integrate it into their lifestyle in a sustainable manner is between 6 and 9 months. But what we find is that people actually stay beyond the 6 to 9 month marker because they love the community. They love the coaching. They love having somebody in their back pocket. And they just love being, having this accessible to them at any point in time. Mm-hmm. So, go into this process with about that time frame in your mind. And if it happens quicker, awesome.
And if you want to stay longer, great.
Then even better.
We continue, because that's the thing. There's so many layers of achieving wellness. And I know sometimes it's about, you come into it with one set of goals, which is I want to get a better A1C. And then throughout the process of reversing your insulin resistance, other things start to come up that you didn't even realize were maybe impacted by your health or were impacting your health. Sleep is a big one of those things. That's a topic that comes up for a lot of people. And so we often will work on sleep routines and ways to add in and integrate other lifestyle tools like meditation and yoga and mindfulness activities. And that's a big part of the lifestyle change is bringing more awareness and mindfulness to your daily life. And those types of things are you know, they're not easy to always integrate right away. So it takes time. There's a process that's unfolding as you're improving your health. And, you know, so, and, you know, there's a length of time that will work for you, and we will find it.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
will
That's
help you find it.
That's for us to figure out, not for you to
Yeah.
worry about, right? You just come and you do the process and have a good time.
Yeah.
That's great. I saw a question about someone, here it is from John. Cyrus, I wear a 24-hour glucose monitor. Why are carbs/fruit spike my blood sugar for like 3 hours, but when I have protein, I do not have a spike at all?
Okay, so first of all, I need to have a couple of pieces of information. Number one, what do you consider a spike? Okay, the term spike, unfortunately, is used incorrectly. And some people say, oh, my blood glucose spiked to a 115. And I'm like, that's not a spike. And some people say, oh, my blood glucose spiked to 130. And I'm like, that's not a spike. Okay. Some people say, oh, no, my blood glucose spiked to 250. So tell me, number one, what is a spike according to your definition? And then secondarily, why does that not happen when I consume protein? You're going to have to give me more information. Are you eating protein at the exact same time as your carbohydrate? Are you eating protein before your carbohydrate? Are you eating protein after your carbohydrate? And secondarily, are you eating the same amount of carbohydrate and just adding protein on top? Or are you increasing your protein intake and decreasing your carbohydrate intake? Okay, I need to know all of these things in order to answer your question properly.
Got it. Okay. So let's take this question from Gina. Where does it go? Eating a perfect SOFAS-free diet and still have very high cholesterol numbers, HDL, LDL, triglycerides, is that still dangerous?
Okay, eating a SOFAS-free diet, but I still have high LDL, high triglycerides.
HDL and triglycerides.
Okay. Again, I need more information. I need more information as to how long has this process been happening for? And if you're eating, okay, let's put it this way. If you're eating complete SOFAS-free, right? Which is like SOS on steroids, and you're eating as clean as you possibly can, and your triglycerides are still high, tell me how high, and your LDL is still high, tell me how high. It could be that you have a genetic predisposition towards altered lipid metabolism. In other words, it could be that you have a genetic predisposition towards high LDL.
Like me.
Just like Anna. Actually,
I believe like Tammy.
Tammy's also in that same situation.
Yeah.
Both of you guys are, okay? It turns out that there's like, I don't know the number. I think there's something like upwards of 80 different genes that can alter your lipid metabolism. And identifying exactly which gene could be, you know, you might have a mutation in one of these genes that could be predisposing you towards high lipids. It can be a nightmare. But the point is that if you do have a genetic predisposition, then that has to be identified and it has to be dealt with. And sometimes medication, in addition to a SOFAS-free diet, is the answer. And again, we're not anti-medication here. We use medication when necessary. So, you know, if you don't know what are the genetic predispositions that you may be living with, you know, we can go down that route and try and help you and see if there's a way that you can get the right information. But this is definitely important if you've been eating a SOFAS-free diet and it doesn't seem to be lowering your lipids.
Okay, great. And John wrote back that he eats a banana and it goes to 180.
Okay, but then tell me about how much protein you're consuming and whether, you know, what type of protein, how much are you consuming, and are you decreasing your carbohydrate intake when you eat that protein?
Oh, he says he eats bacon and eggs and no spike at all, wore the continuous glucose monitor for 3 years. Yeah, people are, he said spike to 180 after eating one banana for breakfast by itself.
Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry, the gentleman's name one more time?
John.
Okay, so John, here's what I recommend. Please go back and watch the original video that I did with Chef AJ. I believe it was 6 days ago. It's another live stream where we go into grave detail here about what insulin resistance is and what causes it. Long story short, if you're eating bacon, if you're eating eggs, chances are that you have excess lipid deposition inside of your liver and inside of your muscle. In other words, there's excess fatty acids that are stored inside of your liver and muscle that are inhibiting the action of insulin. And so as a result of that, when you're already in that state and then you try and eat anything that contains carbohydrate, whether it's fruit, starchy vegetables, legumes, whole grains, your blood glucose is likely to elevate beyond 130. So it's likely to go much higher. The only way you can solve that problem, is to, number one, first reverse insulin resistance. It must reverse insulin resistance by eating a low fat diet. If you eat a low fat diet, then and only then can you increase your carbohydrate intake. But if you choose to keep a high fat intake by eating bacon, by eating eggs, by eating dairy products, red meat, white meat, you name it, or even plant-based fat-rich foods, then eating carbohydrate-rich foods is extremely challenging, and you may never be able to do it without your blood glucose going too high. So go back to that video, please watch the whole thing. And if you still have questions, write to our team at team@masteringdiabetes.org and we can help you out.
Great. All right. Well, this is good. I mean, you've given us so much time. You've answered so many questions. It just shows you how attentive they're going to be if you join the program. I mean, look, you've given us a whole week. Give you a week. How about this? Give them a week. They'll lower your A1C.
Yeah, that's a true statement. And, you know, like, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but we, like I said earlier, we take our jobs really seriously. And there's very few things in the world that make us happier as a team than receiving stories from our clients whose lives have been changed. And that includes Tammy, that includes Anna, that includes literally, I'm
Linda,
not even
who's
joking.
on our
Linda
Linda
Weed.
was on here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Linda's in there.
So many people.
I mean,
there's just too many. I mean, we have so many people that we just love to, and actually we have team meetings every Monday. And part of our Monday morning team meeting is literally sharing results of members and people who are telling us about their results. It's just so much fun. It makes our meetings and our team experience just it's very enriching and very exciting.
Yeah. We actually get fed by like this type of positive energy. So,
and mangoes.
That too, that helps. And chickpeas. So if you're interested, if you think that the Mastering Diabetes method is something that you would benefit from, or you know somebody who would benefit from the Mastering Diabetes program, even if it is a child who is 6 years old, whose parents are trying to find a way to ideally or to manage their blood glucose in a more optimal manner, just go to masteringdiabetes.org/apply. masteringdiabetes.org/APPLY. Visit that page. Take a look at the information on that page. And if this is the right thing for you, I can guarantee with 100% confidence that this coaching program can absolutely change your life for the better. And again, like I said 1,000 times, if it doesn't do it, we would literally coach you for free until you do. We stand by that 100% of the way, and we're here to help in any way that we can.
Well, thank you so much, Cyrus and Kylie, and thank you, Tammy and Anna, for sharing your testimonials. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, when my guest will be a Food for Life PCRM cooking instructor named Renetta Coleman, and she's going to be making the Applebee Court lentil loaf. And we know that lentils are really good for diabetes, right, Cyrus and Kylie? Because Wendy or Michelle, one of them, did a whole demonstration on all the different lentils.
That's exactly right. It was Michelle yesterday, I believe.
Lentiful.
And lentiful. She showed you exactly how to use lentils. Lentils are literally like one of the greatest foods you can put in your mouth, period, end of story.
Absolutely.
Great. Eat carbs.
Yep. Carbs are your friend. Not carbs. Carbohydrate-rich foods are your friend.
Right.
No, not your fault. Not your fault. It's just the general rhetoric. Carbohydrate-rich foods are your friend, but in order to eat them, it is a necessity. It is a biological necessity to be eating a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. So if you can do that, the world is your oyster mushroom.
Oyster mushroom, right?
And you will love it.
And we'll be manufacturing. I've got 99 problems, but de novo lipogenesis isn't one of them. Any day now, for everyone on the Mastering Diabetes team who joins us. Kidding, guys. No, I mean, people might take me up on that. Anyway, it's such a wonderful week, guys. Thank you so much for all you've given to our audience. And these videos will be up for a long time, probably until I die and beyond. So people, please share them with your friends. If you watch on Facebook, you don't really get the full picture. So please hop on over on YouTube, because that's where you can be in the chat and you can send them to your friends, and they don't have to be like registered or anything to watch on YouTube. So thanks again, Mastering Diabetes. You guys are the masters.
Thank you so much, Chef AJ. We absolutely love you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Anna.
Yes.
We love you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.